So my name is Jordan Sauter. Me and my wife own Red Oak Food Company. Today, I'm going to show you how to make small batch miso in your own home. So what is miso anyway? Well, if I were to tell you that you could grow mold on some rice and mix it with some beans or nuts and then eat it, would that sound appetizing to you? You gotta trust me. Step number one in making this beautiful, delicious stuff would be to grow some koji. And what koji is it's a mold called Aspergillus oryzae, and you're gonna grow it on rice for this recipe. You can also grow it on barley. I've grown it on quinoa, plenty of other different grains. It has the ability to break down protein into amino acids, which produce massive amounts of umami, and that's that magic savory flavor sensation that people can't get enough of. So we're going to head inside to my home kitchen, and we're going to get started in showing you how to grow some koji on rice. So one critical thing with growing koji is soaking your rice for 4 to 6 hours ahead of time. So you just take your dry grains, cold water, and make sure there's enough because it's going to soak up a little bit of the water. Just like that. And this is a step that you cannot skip. So after we soaked our rice, we cooked it to that happy spot. You don't want to overcook your rice. You don't want to undercook your rice. You want it so that the outer surface, which is the other part of soaking, the outer surface is nice and soft so that the koji can take hold and work its way into the grains so it can feed on the grains of rice. So they still have some firmness and the outside soft at the same time, nice and fluffy. So it's important to stir the rice and cool it properly, and you need to get it cooled down. My target is 85 Fahrenheit. If it's any warmer, you risk killing the spores before they have a chance to work their magic. So give it a stir, fluff it up. If you do have any clumps, give it just a very gentle little pressure to break up the clumps.
So where do you put the rice? Where do you put the rice?
This is what building your koji chamber is going to look like. First, you want to start off with styrofoam cooler. This is a nice simple build, and everything that I'm going to put in here is going to cost you about $75. So, starting with the cooler, a seed warming mat. I went ahead and I cut a little space for this cord, and then it lays real nicely right down the bottom. On top of that, I have this wire rack. Now, you're not going to be able to find this exact thing, but something like it is going to be good. I'm going to put the inoculated rice on top of this, and it's going to need to breathe, so that's why I have the wire rack. A perforated pan, something with holes in it, are very good. So our seed warming mat gets plugged into this guy, which has a probe thermometer that goes directly into the rice and will monitor your temperature and turn the heat mat on when it needs to be turned on, so that our target temperature, which I'm aiming for about 82 Fahrenheit, is maintained throughout the entire time that the koji's growing. Next, this is an Aquarium Air Stone that you would use in a fish tank. They're like $10 on Amazon. It plugs in, has a little air pump. It pumps air into this little thing and disperses So because Koji's a mold, it's going to need oxygen to grow. So what I do is cut another little thing in the styrofoam, and then my air tube goes in to any kind of little plastic vessel full of warm water. Air Stone goes inside, and this does two things. It gives the mold moisture to keep the humidity where it needs to be, and then it also gives oxygen to the mold. So with these three things, we've taken care of the heat source, the oxygen source, and the humidity. Those are critical things to make sure your Koji grows nicely. Lastly, this tiny little amazing thing, I got it on Amazon for like 16 bucks, and this is going to measure your temperature and your humidity, and it can connect to your cell phone via Bluetooth, so you can monitor and you don't really have to look in your chamber. So all I do is take a little paper clip, and I hang it right on the side. And so once you have all these things set up, now you're ready to cook your rice and get the Koji growing. I just use a spoon. I go right into my spores, and I just gently tap. Now the amount of spores that you should use is going to depend on how much Koji you're trying to grow. Sprinkle it on, and then you're just going to gently mix it so that the spores cover all the rice. But notice I'm not clumping it up. I'm using my fingertips gently, and I'm kind of going like this to break up any clumps that there might be. Make sure you pull in the rice from the sides, because everybody needs some spores. So these right here are called tanugis, and they're Japanese cloth, linen, and they are lint free. We're gonna lay our tanugi on our wire rack, put some gloves on, and then we're gonna put our inoculated rice onto the tanugi. You don't really want to go any deeper than 2 inches, because the mold really won't be able to go that deep to create its mycelial mat. A nice mound in the middle. And then I gently work my way to the sides of the wire rack. Just like that. So, after 48 hours, the Koji is ready. So if you'll come closer to take a look, it looks like rice from a little far away, but as we get closer, we notice that it's got like a fuzzy coating on the outside. And the Koji mycelium has developed, which means it's like one big, almost clumpy piece of rice, and I have to pull it apart. It's not like crumbly rice anymore. So the smell's intense. This Koji is active and alive, and it's ready to ferment a ton of different things. You can use it for miso. If there's any left over, I like to use it for a marinade, which contains all those enzymes. It's called Shio Koji. It's just this, water and salt, and it tenderizes and seasons whatever you put it on, and it's amazing. So first things first, to put this miso together, you're going to need to weigh your koji out. So we're going to start by getting our pieces, and we're looking for 1,300 grams. So you can see, because that mycelial mat developed, it is like cakes, and it stays together. It does not crumble. We have exactly what we need to make our miso. So another important thing, if you get the tanuki cloth, whatever you clean it with is going to be part of your miso. So I use hot water with salt in it. That's it, because those are things that are going to go in my miso to begin with. If you're going to use soap, mild soap. Anything with fragrance will get into this and transfer to your miso, and no. So we have our 1,300 grams of koji. To that, we are going to add 275 grams of clean water. If you prefer to use distilled water or spring water, fine. Just, you don't want any kind of funky stuff getting in your miso. So I'm just going to mash it up a little tiny bit. Now, you don't always put water in your miso. This one I do, because the almond flour can tend to be a bit dry. So your koji's all mashed up with the water. We're then going to add 1,000 grams of pre-ground almond flour. And unlike when you're making the koji, you can smash this stuff up together. Totally cool. So once this is all incorporated, you're going to add 130 grams of salt, kosher or sea salt, nothing with any additives. Now once the salt's in there, you really want to incorporate and make sure everything is nice and evenly distributed. So I like to mature the miso in, this is just a glass cookie jar. You can buy them anywhere. Large glass jars work. Anything that's non-reactive, so you don't want to age this in metal or anything like that. Plastic or glass. Now we're ready to move it to our vessel where we're going to let it mature. So the bottom layer, we want to make sure we press it down so that as little air as possible gets in there. Now the koji's going to produce gases and get bubbly, so air is just going to be something that happens naturally, but little pockets of it can encourage growth of weird stuff. So we just want to do our best. Doesn't need to be airtight, and you don't need to get rid of every last bit of air, but as much as possible is good. Now you can already see the consistency of this is a finished miso, and it's just going to change slightly as it matures. Try to get the surface nice and even, flat. Our next move is going to be to be pretty generous with plastic wrap lengthwise. We're going to make an X, and then we're going to carefully press that down so that it makes a barrier with the top. I'm going to press this into the surface of the miso so we can let the koji do its thing and not let anything else take hold and change what we're doing. There is enough salt to prevent most of that from happening, but we want to do whatever we can to make sure that our finished product comes out the way we intended. All right, so I brought the edges of this right up to the end, all the way around. Next, just a regular Ziploc bag. And a whole bunch of salt. And this is going to do two things. One, it's going to weight the top down. And it's also going to seal the top even further. Get rid of as much air that's in as you can that's in there. Put a lid right on it. Doesn't need to be airtight. And this is ready to go. You want to mark it 2 months from today's date. You can do 6 weeks if you want to do it quickly. I recommend no longer than 9. Those lines right there, that's the Koji working its fermentation magic, creating gases. And so you'll see that start to develop in the new one in as little as 24 hours. And, you know, that's a good sign. You know your Koji's active, your miso's fermenting. Now all you have to do is wait.
Hi guys, Sarah here. Although I am normally largely behind the scenes, I wanted to pop in at the end and just let you know that I've taken all of the resources Jordan has spoken about in the video and I've put them on our website. If you go to ferment and then making miso, you'll see a simplified breakdown of how to make koji as well as everything that you're going to need to buy for that. There are links, they're just suggestions. And before I head out, I want to thank everybody for all of the support and love. This year has been kind of bonkers, but as we all know, change is hard and change is not pretty. It is necessary though. So we are excited to put in our work as individuals and as part of a larger community to make this world a better place for everybody. Thank you, love to everybody, and enjoy making miso. Bye guys.